Hello everyone, welcome back to the forge. Now today we're going to be taking these pieces of scrap here. I'm going to make a little skinning knife out of it. We're going to use this piece of elk antler here for the handle. Going to do a copper spacer, piece of Damascus here. I don't know how many layers this is, it's just the end piece. We're going to use it as the bolster piece, and we're going to take this piece right here and we're going to forge it out into what will become the blade. So with that being said, let's go ahead and toss this in the forge, get it heated up, get it forged out into more of a billet shape so we can cut it into shape. Let's get to work. Now I'm sure there's some of you that wonder why I did this right here. More experienced knife makers will know why. What I'm doing is I put this in here so it would cool down extremely slow. This is hardwood ash. You can also do it with the clay-based cat litter, some other things like that. But this will allow the steel to cool down super slow, which will make it soft and easy to work, especially on the piece that I'm going to use for the spacer, because sometimes Damascus can be notoriously hard to mill and everything else. So this ought to make sure that it's nice and soft, give me a chance to mill the slot in there, give me a chance to cut the profile of our blade out, and we can move on to getting this little knife made. So that's the reason I use this. Like I said, just hardwood ash out of my stove from where I burn wood in the winter. Alright, we'll let that cool off and we'll take it out, take a look at it here later on. everything went through the quench and the temper grate. So it's time to get on the grinder and clean all this up, and then we'll move on to our guard. Alright, I got the layout fluid applied to our piece of steel here. I'm going to go ahead and position the antler on here the best way that I can. Pretty close fit. Then we'll scribe around it, and then we'll get all the lines marked and get the slot milled out for the tang of our knife. Alright, I got our center line here, and the way that I did that was I went over and I clamped this piece of steel into the vise in the mill, and then I took a drill bit, just a wore out bit that I had, and I brought it down to where it barely touched the surface. And because this is a weird irregular shaped piece of steel, trying to do this with the calipers is possible, but it would have been a lot more difficult. So what I did was I clamped this in the vise. I brought the drill bit down to where it barely touched the surface, and then I used the X and Y axis on my milling machine to establish where I wanted the center to be, and then let that bit just drag a little bit across the top, which gave me a nice straight line that would have been a little more difficult with all these edges being irregular. There's probably better ways to do it. This worked for me, so let's go ahead and get the tang figured out, get the holes punched, drilled out, milled out, and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, now I'm going to drill our antler out. We only need about 1.5 inches depth for this tang hole, so I'm going to go ahead and drill it with my regular drill, and then I've got my caliper here. It's a cheap caliper, and it's what I'll use to judge the depth with. Alright, I'm going to use my broach here to open the mouth of this up a little bit more. Now another way you can do that drilling like I did a while ago is you can put a drill stop on the bit at 1.5 inches. You can also put a piece of tape around it. That'll work as well. I just went by feel and just kind of pulling it out and watching it. We're going to go ahead and broach this out. Just up here at the top. Then we'll be ready to move on to looking at that spacer. Alright, we got all of our pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and get them shaped. And I'll catch you in a minute when it's all wrapped up. Alright, so I made an error. I thought this guard, this piece I was using for the guard, was actually a scrap piece of Damascus. And come to find out it's not. It is high carbon steel, it's just not Damascus. Such as it goes when you're working with scrap materials. But I'll just go ahead and I did harden it, etched it. I'll probably go ahead and blue it. I may just leave it this color here because it looks pretty good. Has an antique look to it kinda. And that'll go pretty good with the flow of the knife. So hoping for it to be Damascus to go with the blade, but that's fine. So I'm gonna move on to getting the knife put together and we'll take a look at it at the end. I still think it'll look pretty good. Alright, I've got everything glued up. Now I'm going to go over to the mill. I've got the drill chuck in it. I'm going to go ahead and drill a pinhole. And then we'll be all finished up and I'll show y'all guys what she looks like. Alright, catch you in a minute. Alright, the pin is in. I wanted to definitely go with the pin on this style of knife because the tang's so short. I wanted that extra strength in there, that extra something else in there to kind of hold it. The epoxy would probably work out because, like I said, this blade's not very big. This is a small knife, but I wanted that extra little bit. So I'm going to get this taken off, this tape, get it cleaned up, and I'll show y'all guys what she looks like. Catch you in a second. Alright, I appreciate you for checking out this video. Didn't turn out half bad for a bunch of little pieces of scrap. If you would, hit the subscribe button down below, ring the notification bell to notify me of this content as it posts. I appreciate you watching as always, and I'll catch you on the next one. Y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.